Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. In today's video, we're diving into the story of our very first Japanese ocean liner on the channel, the MV Asama Maru. The ship was Japan's largest passenger ship at the time and earned the title Queen of the Pacific Route. On her maiden voyage to California, she set a remarkable record, capturing international attention. But her story would take a darker turn during World War II, when she was tragically torpedoed and sunk. Hello everyone, it's Jamie from Old Shipping Lines. Join me as we explore the full story of the Asama Maru, from her construction and peacetime service to her dramatic wartime role and her final fateful voyage beneath the waves. The ship would be owned by Nippon Yusen Kaisha and constructed by Mitsubishi Shipbuilding and Engineering Company in Nagasaki, Japan. Let's quickly go over the key specifications of this vessel. The ship would have had a gross tonnage of 16,947 gross registered tons. She measured 178 meters in length, which is approximately 584 feet, and had a beam of 21.9 meters, or 72 feet. Powered by 4 Mitsubishi Sulzer diesel engines, the vessel featured 2 funnels, 2 masts, and quadruple screws, allowing for a service speed of 21 knots. Although only 1 funnel was functionally necessary, a second was added purely for aesthetic balance. The Asama Maru offered accommodations for 222 first-class passengers, 96 second-class passengers, and up to 504 third-class passengers. She was operated by a crew of 330. At the time, she was Japan's largest passenger ship and stood out for her luxurious interior, which was specially designed to appeal to Western and European tastes. She was also a rare example of a large passenger ship powered by diesel engines. The Asama Maru did not sail the seas alone. She had 2 sister ships, the Tatsuta Maru and the Chichibu Maru. The ship was launched on 30 October 1928 and departed Yokohama on her maiden voyage to California on 11 October 1929, arriving on the 24th of that month. During a subsequent crossing upon arrival in San Francisco on 14 December 1930, U.S. Customs agents seized a large amount of opium during festivities, marking the ship's first anniversary of Trans-Pacific service. In August 1932, the Asama Maru carried the Japanese Olympic team to Los Angeles for the Summer Games. While in the city, gold medalist Baron Takeichi Nishi hosted his friends, Hollywood legends Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford. On another notable voyage, departing San Francisco on April 1st, 1937, the Asama Maru transported Helen Keller, who was delivering a goodwill message on behalf of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Tragedy struck the Asama Maru on September 2nd, 1937, when a powerful typhoon battered the Hong Kong region. Though not the strongest ever recorded, it was one of the most devastating storms remembered by those who lived through it. 28 ocean-going vessels were caught in the chaos, along with countless fishing boats and junks, many of which were lost with all hands. The death toll was estimated at around 11,000. A massive tidal surge rising to an extraordinary 18 feet, more than double the usual high tide, was responsible for widespread destruction and the immense loss of life. During the storm, the Asama Maru, anchored in the harbor, broke free from her moorings. She was not alone. The 17,900-ton Italian liner, the Conte Verde, was driven aground at Saiwan Bay, while the British India steamer, the Talamba, weighing 8,000 tons, ran ashore at Liamun. The Asama Maru, too, was eventually forced aground at Saiwan Bay by the unrelenting winds and towering waves. The perilous position of the Asama Maru became clear in the aftermath of the storm. She lay roughly 80 feet offshore, listing to starboard by about 6 degrees. She had run aground in Saiwan Bay around 4 a.m. after drifting helplessly through Junk Bay at the height of the typhoon, when wind speeds reached a staggering 167 miles per hour. As daylight broke, the full extent of her situation became apparent to the officers and crew, marking a tense and anxious morning on board. While the structural damage was relatively limited, confined mainly to the bottom plating, it was the salvage operation that posed the greater challenge. At the time of the storm, the ship was not carrying any cargo, and the unusually high tides driven by the typhoon forced her further onto the rocky shoreline, making the recovery far more complex. 5 days after the Asama Maru ran aground, Japanese salvage crews began the complex task of freeing her. The operation approached the challenge from 2 fronts. Internally, the ship was stripped of weight, while externally a channel was blasted through the surrounding rock to allow her to be refloated during the next suitable high tide. Significant resources were committed to the effort. 2 salvage tugs, including the Yusho Maru, were deployed, along with a workforce of 213 men, 36 of them divers. To carve the escape channel, 5,000 pounds of dynamite were initially used. Over the course of 200 days, a staggering 7,300 tons of rock, clay, and sand were removed from an area covering 22,000 square feet, using a total of 25,000 dynamite charges. To lighten the vessel, crews removed 2 of the main engines, as well as fuel oil, ballast, water, various fittings, anchors, winches, lifeboats, and stores, altogether reducing the ship's weight by approximately 4,000 tons. Additionally, 10 external buoyancy tanks, each with a 50-ton capacity, were attached to assist in lifting her off the rocks. Attempts to refloat the ship in November 1937 were unsuccessful, with the next favorable opportunity expected during the spring tides of March 1938. Meanwhile, the owners of British and Italian vessels accused the NYK Line of negligence, claiming their ships had been forced aground by the drifting the Asama Maru, and were seeking compensation from the company. On Friday, March 11th, 1938, the Asama Maru was successfully refloated and towed to a wharf in Hong Kong. There, temporary repairs were made before she departed on March 18th for Nagasaki. She arrived on April 2nd to undergo a comprehensive overhaul and repairs. The extensive 6-month refit was carried out by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in Nagasaki. Almost like a new ship, the Asama Maru set sail once again on September 15th, 1938, resuming her regular route between Japan and the United States. On January 6th, 1940, the Asama Maru set sail from San Francisco carrying 51 German citizens. 15 days later, on January 21st, the ship was intercepted in international waters approximately 35 miles off Nozaki Lighthouse, near the southern tip of the Boso Peninsula, by the Royal Navy light cruiser HMS Liverpool. British intelligence had learned that crew members from the scuttled German liner Columbus, who had fled to the United States, were traveling aboard Asama Maru in an attempt to return to Germany. In a move that breached Japan's neutrality and international law, the British government authorized the commander-in-chief of the China station to board the ship, as long as the Japanese coastline was not in sight. The Asama Maru initially refused to stop, but was compelled to do so after the Liverpool fired a blank shot as a warning. An armed boarding party then removed 21 passengers, all former officers or technicians from Standard Oil tankers, on the grounds that they were German military personnel. The Japanese government formally protested the action, citing Article 47 of the 1909 London Declaration, which stipulates that only individuals actively enlisted in the armed forces of belligerent nations. Additionally, the fact that the incident occurred so close to Japan's shores further heightened tensions between the two nations. Despite the rise in anti-British sentiment in Japan, Prime Minister Mitsumasa Yonai's government adopted a more conciliatory stance. In exchange for Japan's promise not to transport certain categories of military-age German nationals in the future, the British agreed to release some of the detained passengers. On February 29th, as the Asama Maru was departing Yokohama, 9 of the previously captured German civilians were returned to the ship by the British armed merchant cruiser Canimbla. On 25th October 1940, the Asama Maru departed San Francisco. During this voyage, 14 crewmen, 6 officers and 8 sailors of the Columbus, traveling in disguise as American students, were on board and reached Yokohama. On 29th of June 1941, she was chartered by the German government to evacuate 666 German and Italian nationals detained in the Netherlands East Indies following the Axis invasion of the Netherlands. On July 18th, 1941, the Asama Maru departed Yokohama bound for San Francisco, carrying 98 passengers, including 47 Japanese Americans. However, while crossing the Pacific, the situation rapidly changed, prompting the Asama Maru to reverse course and head back toward Japan. On July 24th, the ship turned north and halted upon encountering dense fog banks. Meanwhile, in response to Japan's military actions, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed an executive order on July 26, 1941, freezing all Japanese assets in the United States. This effectively ended American trade with Japan, including vital exports such as oil and scrap metal. Britain and the Dutch East Indies soon followed with similar embargoes. That same day, the crew of the Asama Maru painted her funnels black and removed the Japanese flags from her hull and decks, marking the ship's transition into a more cautious and uncertain phase as international tensions continued to rise. On the evening of July 27th, the Asama Maru received orders to return to Yokohama. She turned around and sailed west for the next 36 hours. Then, 24 hours later, her course changed once again, this time heading toward Honolulu, where she arrived at 3:30 p.m. on July 31st. The following morning at 9 a.m., the ship departed for San Francisco. However, after covering nearly 1,000 miles eastward, the Asama Maru was recalled to Japan. The ship arrived back in Yokohama on August 10th, 1941, still carrying a cargo of silk valued at 750,000 pounds sterling in her holds. On August 30th, The Asama Maru carried 350 Polish Jewish refugees from Kobe to Shanghai. These individuals had made their way to Japan via Siberia and were received into the Shanghai ghetto upon arrival. A few months later, on November 6th, the ship set sail for Singapore to evacuate 450 Japanese civilians, completing the journey back to Kobe by November 26th. This marked the end of her career as a civilian liner. On November 30th, the Asama Maru was officially requisitioned by the Imperial Japanese Navy. When the attack on Pearl Harbor took place, the Asama Maru was already in service as a troop transport and had just reached Saipan. In the early months of 1942, she carried out multiple missions between Japan, the Philippines, and Borneo. One of her key operations occurred on January 16, 1942, when she delivered paratroopers from the 3rd Yokosuka Special Naval Landing Force to Tarakan, Borneo. In June 1942, Asama Maru was temporarily assigned as a diplomatic exchange vessel tasked with repatriating pre-war diplomatic staff from both Japan and the Allied nations. She set sail from Yokohama on June 25th, carrying U.S. Ambassador Joseph Grew, 430 other American diplomats, and members of the Spanish embassy. At Hong Kong on June 29th, she took aboard an additional 377 Americans, Canadians, and other Allied nationals who had been held for 44 months in the Stanley internment camp. More passengers were taken on at Saigon on July 3rd and again in Singapore on July 6th, bringing the total number of civilians aboard to 789 by the time she reached Lourenço Marques in Portuguese East Africa on July 22nd. There, the exchange was completed. The Allied civilians were swapped for 1,500 Japanese and Siamese diplomats, businessmen, and journalists who had been stranded in the United States and Brazil since the start of the war and brought to the port aboard the MS Gripsholm. The Asama Maru returned to Yokohama on August 20th and was once again requisitioned by the Imperial Japanese Navy on September 5th. In February 1943, Asama Maru was outfitted with a hydrophone system and a rack capable of carrying 16 depth charges. On March 10th, while off the coast of Takao, she narrowly avoided disaster when the USS Sunfish launched 4 torpedoes at her. Thanks to an alert hydrophone operator, the crew was warned in time. The ship managed to take evasive action and escape unscathed. Nearly a year later, on February 23rd, 1944, Asama Maru came under attack once more, this time from the USS Greyback. In the South China Sea, about 20 miles east of Taiwan, she sustained only minor damage, but the attack proved deadly for the nearby oiler Nanpo Maru, which was sunk in the same strike. On October 29th, the Asama Maru departed Manila carrying 1,383 individuals, including military personnel, civilian employees, and survivors from previously sunken merchant ships. Her cargo was a mixed load of scrap iron, hemp, and raw rubber. This voyage, designated MAMO-04, was escorted by a torpedo boat and 2 minesweepers for protection. The next day, just before noon on October 30th, a B-24 bomber was spotted overhead. The crew quickly prepared for possible combat, as the Asama Maru had been armed with an array of anti-aircraft guns. The bomber remained in view for nearly 100 minutes before flying off, likely after transmitting the convoy's location to nearby Allied submarines. Later that evening, an enemy submarine was detected nearby. One of the minesweepers was dispatched to investigate and responded by dropping depth charges. The following day, as the weather worsened, lookouts spotted an unidentified small vessel. Soon after, a drifting lifeboat carrying several occupants was found, further suggesting a submarine lurking in the area. The previously spotted small ship reappeared, prompting another minesweeper to investigate, while the torpedo boat remained occupied assisting those in the lifeboat. To maintain communication with her escorts, the Asama Maru reduced speed to 11 knots. However, concerns over the possible submarine's presence forced the ship to alter course frequently, zigzag, to evade potential attack. In the early hours of November 1st, 1944, the Asama Maru made contact with a submarine. The ship resumed her original speed while continuing to zigzag at approximately 4:35 a.m. In the Bashi Channel, the Asama Maru was struck by two torpedoes fired from the USS Atul, commanded by Lieutenant Commander John Maurer. The torpedoes struck the starboard side, hitting both the auxiliary and main engine rooms. A heavy starboard list quickly developed, worsened by two additional torpedo hits near the number 3 and number 4 cargo holds. The stern began to settle rapidly, and at 4:46 a.m., the Asama Maru sank vertically, stern first. Of the 1,874 crew, gunners, and military personnel on board, 474 lost their lives. Many survivors, including Captain Agawa, were rescued and landed at Takao on the afternoon of November 2nd. Thank you all for watching and for accompanying me on this detailed exploration of the MV Asama Maru, a remarkable ship whose story reflects both the heights of human achievement and the profound costs of war. Her legacy as Japan's Queen of the Pacific route and her final sacrifice during turbulent times deserve to be remembered with honor and reflection.
And that marks the end of a video, my friends. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, if you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing to the channel, as that would help out the channel a lot. Now, if you have any thoughts, comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section down below, as I absolutely love reading your comments. And please let me know in the comment section down below as well what ships you would like me to cover in the future. Now be as well sure to check out our social media pages. We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we also recently have a website, oldshippinglines.com, where we have articles of the ships we cover and we have book reviews as well. I think you will enjoy the website very much. Now, with that out of the way, guys, I wish you all a good night or day, wherever you are. Stay safe, stay happy, and we will see each other on the next video. Goodbye, my friends.